Hello guys and welcome back. So again, join with Steve. A little bit different today. We're not necessarily talking about a topic, but we're going to go and do a review of Stephens' new custode list. He's had great success over the past few tournaments at ITT, at GTs. He's just come back from a major win at the Warhammer World event. So we're going to talk to Steve and see where the evolution of this list came from.
Yeah.
So yeah, first of all, why Custodes? You used to play Sisters. Why the change?
So I moved away from Sisters when the balance data slate changed for them. And I 100% understand why Games Workshop made the decision they did. Sisters were very, very strong, especially the Bringers of Flame. Whereas I was playing Army of Faith, and I quite liked it. But the issue that I had was with the changes, it really impacted Army of Faith with how many miracle dice you could actually use. And I already was finding that I'd played Sisters for maybe 10 months, maybe even longer. And I was getting to the point where I was like, I wanted something new, I wanted something fresh. And I thought, now's a great time. And I remember speaking to Jake, we were coming back from an event, and I was thinking, do you know what? I haven't seen a huge amount on Custodes recently. And I thought, I'll give them a try. And I was I spoke to him about it, and I thought, yeah, I think that'll be my next army. And obviously I just needed a gap between, I knew Eldar was obviously coming out, it'd been announced, we'd seen some of the models shown off, they all looked awesome. I played Eldar for most of 9th edition, and I was super excited to get them back on the table. And this puts me in a very awkward, interesting position now, because I could have took Eldar to the GT, but I didn't. For a lot of different reasons, and I had to really weigh it all up because my heart really wanted to play Eldar.
Was there many new Eldar lists at this?
Not many.
GT? No.
Not many. And it was the first event that they would have been allowed to be
Legal.
used at.
Yeah.
And I chose not to for a lot of different reasons. But the biggest one for me was, if I go there with Eldar, it's a brand new codex, how are my opponents going to feel not knowing the codex very well? There's going to be a lot of gotcha moments. And also, how well am I going to know the rules? And not particularly well. Sure, I've had some practice games, but I'm not going to know it as well as I know my Custodes.
Exactly,
So that was one deciding factor. Also, I love playing in teams. Ben Jones on our team is a big Eldar fan. There's no way I'm taking him away from playing Eldar. So I may as well stay on Custodes. I was still enjoying the army. And I felt like I had more juice left in there to squeeze. I had more combos to try out. I had more alliterations of the list to try out.
Okay, so you first took them to the LVO, was it?
LVO was the first event, yeah.
Yeah, I can remember we were doing practice games with them, and I played against a few times, had a few close games. And based off your first list, how has it changed? Because I know you've made some changes to it, haven't you?
Yeah, so I've always played Shield Host, and most people have been playing the new Grotmus detachments with all the Telemons and stuff, and it's a very durable army, but it's not my playstyle. I prefer speed in combat. So Shield Host, I get critical hits on 5s, and the list I took to LVO, I think I had a Catalyst Assassin in there. I had a lot more little mission playing pieces. I had some enhancements on some of those units, and I just wanted more Custodes. So I dropped out everything that wasn't absolutely essential. And then that allowed me then to go from LVO to playing at the ITT, the team event, and Team VT. We came second. And whoop. I know, yeah, whoop, whoop, whoop. We did really, really well. As a team, it's fantastic. And I won all my games, which I was super happy about. Because I had some really tough games against some great opponents. But I changed my list from LVO to the UKTC ITT event. Put, again, more stuff in. And then, because I'd done well with that list, I knew I had then Beachhead shortly after. So I literally just resubmitted the exact same list. I thought, it's worked at the ITT. I can make that same list work because it's a similar terrain layout, similar sort of missions. And then it came to the decision. I was coming back from Beachhead. I spoke to James Hobbs, and I was like, right, Hobbsy, what am I doing? And Hobbsy has helped me so much over the last few weeks and months, actually, with this list. really helped me. Spent some time and we went to the studio and set up day 2 of the mission pack, and we just went through the deployments, looked at all the objectives, looked where all the firing lanes are. We didn't even roll any dice. We just went through all of it, and he was really patient, went through me of everything. And I sort of discussed each unit that I liked and everything around the army. What was performing well, what wasn't, what would I change, what I'm unsure on. And there was one key unit that is shone so bright.
Okay.
And that was the Terminator units. And I never thought they would be. And it took me a long time to get them to work.
How many do you run in a squad?
So ITT, I took 2 units of 3 and a unit of 2.
Okay.
It's quite a lot.
They're quite expensive, aren't they?
Yeah, they're 130 for 2, 195 for 3.
Yeah.
Now, they are obviously very slow. Now, what I did was I wanted more... I also really like the bikes. And on the sort of GW layouts, the bikes are they've got a bit more utility because it's easier to get around the board because I can't move through walls in this detachment. So I thought, right, I can bring some more bikes back in. And I managed to, because I wasn't getting the Wardens to work as well as I'd wanted to, I felt like the Wardens were over expensive. I loved what the Blade Champion offered a unit, and that was the Advance in Charge. But I felt like the Wardens were just not my playstyle. They're there to just sit, get shot, but I like doing damage.
Yeah.
So what I did was I made some subtle changes from Beachhead to the GW event. In the list, I have, well, in my Beachhead list and the ITT, I had 2 Blade Champions with 2 units of 4 Wardens.
Yeah.
I had 1 Shield Captain on bike with Hurricane Bolters with the enhancement to ignore cover. And then also had 2 bikes to go with him with Hurricane Bolters as well.
Yeah.
I had 4 Witch Seekers with the Flamers that can scout move. And then I had the Terminators like I've just described. And I tested out 3 Venatari and a unit of 6 Venatari. And that's definitely staying. I love those 2 different units. The 3 Venatari can trade really nicely for me. The 6 go and hit anything really hard that I need hit. So anyway, moving on, I was like, well, I don't like the Wardens. They're going. So I dropped 1 unit of Wardens and a Blade Champ for another unit of bikes and a Shield Captain because it's exactly the same points.
Yeah.
I thought, yeah, I love the bikes. I love what they offer. They really win me games because of the abilities that they have.
Those are the ones that can fly over and do mortal wounds?
Correct, but it's also the captain's ability which allows me to move at the end of the fight phase.
Yeah, I've seen that. That's annoying.
So it just means, for me, I can put a unit out, kill something, move away, and it means I'm not then losing my unit. So it allows me to like double trade in a way, but you kind of have to when it's a 310 point unit. It's
a good way to move, kill someone, and then move back into a point as well, which is pretty cool.
So it really is super helpful. So I wanted another unit of them. And then I was in this decision, do I take the Blade Champ with the Wardens again? But what I did was I traded them out for Guard because I looked at the mission pack and I saw that they had lots of special rules that involve around battle line units. And one of my stratagems can only be used on my Guard, and that's the sticky objectives.
Yeah.
So that's what I did. I changed out Wardens for Guard. And I thought I'm just going to play them very differently. I looked at all the layouts and I thought, actually, I see a play. I'm going to use this unit very late game, you know, and I can sticky my home field, maybe turn 4 when all my opponents at Deep Strike have gone in, and I can just move advance into the centre, especially if I go second and hold some big points.
So you were saying that your play style, you like heavy hitting melee and like speed, hence why you bought the new bikes. So talk to me about the thought process of bringing in these slow Terminators, and especially now running 5 of them being so expensive. What was your idea behind that?
Well, I ran 7. And then I took it down to, in the next list, I took it down to just 6. I didn't get on very well with the 2-man team. Sometimes the 2-man team held my backfield objective, but it's only 4 OC.
Yeah.
And then at times you play against something like Hypercrypt Necrons where they can bring down 3 little bikes, shoot you and move on to the point.
It's quite like points as well to hold a backfield.
It's a lot. So I was like, right, well, I need 6 OC on my backfield, at least. But then I don't want to dedicate a 195 point unit to that. What I found with the Terminators was that you can lose a model and they're still effective. And because the army can, and I've actually used these units to do a lot of mission play for me. Move out, do a containment, something along those lines. And they also have uppy downy, so they can leave the table, come back on.
Okay.
So I normally start them on the table, they'll play the mission for me, or what I would often do with them is congregate all of them in the middle of the board and they're just going to go and bully the centre of the table for me. So they don't have very far to travel. They just need to get through the centre terrain, and they're on a point where they're in a good place. And they get some really great rules. They get re-rolls against monsters, characters, and vehicle units, which is pretty much everything you want them to go into.
Yeah.
If I lose a model and I get into combat, I can spend 1 CP, and it gives the other 2 guys an extra attack each. So it puts them at 12 attacks for the unit with 4 re-rolls. Pretty good. So I thought, yeah, they are a real staple. They're difficult to deal with, and they're not really that rewarding for my opponent to kill. It's a strange one. They're not putting on like a huge amount of threat, but you do have to deal with them because over time they'll chew you up.
Especially with the uppy downey ability as well to drop in the backfield and to score.
Yep.
100%, yeah.
And I would always combo them with another unit. So I'd always be looking at, right, I know they're not going to be there at the end of this turn. I need to make sure that I've got a unit set on that objective. So when they go off in uppy downy, and then I would just basically rotate through and I know what unit would be leaving at what time. And that was great to help me play the mission, especially late game when there's maybe even 1 alive. You're like, cool, perfect. Yeah. So the list evolved, and I dropped the 2-man team of Terminators, and I had some spare points left through the saving I made with the Wardens. And instead of a 2-man bike team, 2-man Terminator team, I took a 2-man bike team.
So how many like games of practice did you have of chopping and changing before you realised, okay, this works for my playstyle, this is the list?
Oh, in the lead up to LVO, I was playing 5 games a weekend for probably 4 weekends in a row.
Oh, yeah.
And then me and Hobbsy got some more practice in between those events. And then we had that session where I was so familiar with the list and played so many games at events now. I think it totals to be like a total of 23 event games.
Yeah.
You get to that point where you feel quite confident, where you just need to look at the terrain layouts and everything else, and then you can apply what you've learned in those games. So already, though, I'm seeing ways of changing my list.
Okay.
After the GT at Warhammer World, and that was a great event. Really, really enjoyed it, and I played against 5 great opponents. Played against Crusher Stampede round 1. That was 97-38.
38. Oh, come on, Ned Plow, what are you doing there?
Well, quite unfortunate that he drew some cards and it really baited him to the middle.
Oh, I see, yeah.
And
that's where you want to be, and you're slow, and you just,
he really brought everything in. It allowed me to really capitalise on it.
Yeah.
And I also made some very subtle changes to my list as well. So my 6-man Venatari, I was like, I dropped one of them out to have a buckler and a pistol.
Right.
And on paper it's terrible. And all it does is give you an extra wound. You lose your lance ability on the charge for that one model.
Just for an extra wound?
Just for an extra wound.
Right.
But I've realised out of all those practice games, 5 Venatari kill whatever I need it to.
Okay.
But this one model, if I failed 2 4-ups against an Exocrine, I only lose 1 model. I don't lose 2.
Okay.
And there was a lot of instances where I'd be like, right, the first failed save is going to go on my model with the shield. Maybe they've got a melter gun. Oh, they rolled a 3. Cool. Still got my model alive with a wound left.
Wow, yeah.
So there was a lot of those instances where that flat damage 3 wasn't enough. And I did the same on the guard unit. On the guard unit, you can take spears or shields. And the swords and shields are nowhere near as good. You don't get damage 2. They're not as strong, but you get an extra wound. So I took 2 models with a shield.
Okay.
And one of them had the Vexilla, which I don't think I actually need. I think I'll just have a sword guy and a shield. And I think the 2 guys with the spears, because they get reroll 1s to wound or full rerolls on an objective, with the Blade Champ is enough damage dealing to make that unit just sing enough. So, yeah, the Nid player draw some bad cards, baited him really towards me.
Yeah.
And then I was able to capitalise on it. And then I played against Jack with his great game against Bully Boys and Orcs. That was a 90-58. Nice. That was a really, really good game. Then I played Custodes, the mirror match.
Mirror match, okay.
Yeah, and he had Wardens.
How far of his list did it differ to yours?
He had 2 tanks.
Okay. What, those big, like, strength 14, like, these 3-shot ones?
Yeah, but they're useless against me, really.
Just infantry, yeah.
Because I'm infantry. There's not getting all those special abilities like lethal hits and everything. Of course, if I fail a save, I'm in trouble.
Of course, yeah.
But the key is not to give them any.
Yeah. It must be hard to get line of sight as well with your infantry to hide behind walls.
And it meant that he then needed to play very differently. He had to protect his wardens from getting charged.
And I guess as well, going into that game, you feel confident because you know, as would he, you know exactly what each of his army can do, so there's no gotcha moments and stuff like that.
Yeah, so there's one really good play that I made. And
There's gravy on it.
there's so much gravy, mate.
Go on.
He wanted to move block my Terminators from getting to his bikes that were doing an action for him.
Stop there, let's go and emphasise the word he said. He wanted to. What did he do?
So he moved his tank, because he knew it wasn't going to do much. He couldn't see me anyway for a start. He was like, right, I'm going to go and move block you here. So you have to go all the way around the tank to get to the bikes. And I was like, yeah, fair enough, I agree. And I was looking at it and I was like, okay. And he had his wardens up against the wall. So I couldn't charge them because they would just basically pop the 4 up. I would bounce and I can't shoot them. So I can't bait out the feel no pain. And he was like, you can charge me if you want. I was like, okay, cool. So he's up against the wall. And he started doing an action with them. I thought, right, now's my time. So what I did was I charged that tank with 4 of my units.
Okay, we'll see what we're going to do now.
Terminators went in, bikes went in, another unit of bikes went in, and my 6 Venatari went in.
Yeah.
And I fought first with the Terminators.
Killed that and then consolidated into that.
Nearly killed it.
Okay.
The bikes finished it off, and then I had 2 units left. My 6 Venatari could move in within 0.9 of a wall, so they're now all within an inch, and they could all fight.
Yeah.
And because my opponent didn't pop the 4+ at the start of the phase, and didn't think to, because obviously he wasn't in combat at the time, can't then use it at this point in the game, because I've already made 2 attack sequences, we've seen all the dice rolls, we've seen I've been able to get, because if I couldn't kill the tank, I'm stuck there, and I am dead next turn.
So do you feel that he didn't think you were going to charge all those units in?
Yes.
So because you charged in the 4, killed the tank with a 2, it allowed you to have those 2 to activate into him.
Yeah.
Wow, yeah.
And if he does pop it, I'm like, okay, cool. You've used it now. I don't have to worry about it. I just wouldn't pile into it.
Yeah.
So I'd kill the tank, and what I probably would have done differently was I would have, because the Terminators made a charge, so even if I killed the tank with, let's say, the Venatari, if he would have popped it, I would have still gone into the bikes and killed them with the Terminators instead.
Oh, yeah, definitely. So what was the score in that game?
That was 137.
Bloody hell.
Yeah.
Bit of a stomp now. Okay.
So then the next game was against Blood Angels. And came at me super aggressive, like really, really aggressive. And I couldn't believe it, actually. I was like shocked at how much work some of those units did. And I was like, I'm on the back foot here. Really felt like I was on the back foot.
Was he full cent melee army, was he?
Full center, yeah. And but luckily I managed to get the game back under control and won that game 84-30.
Yeah.
So then the final game was against Tau. And I was really worried about this matchup because all the objectives were out in the open.
Yeah.
And he had the retaliation cadre, and he just had suits. He just had commanders and crisis suits.
Which is great against infantry as
well. And I was like, oh no, this melt is going to hurt so much, and all the plasma. Anyway, we had a great game, and I used a really good rapid ingress to really help me in that game. And he just couldn't quite kill the units dead, so I was often left with like a bike or just the captain or a Terminator. And I just needed to then like maybe charge with a couple of units, and I could see off a lot of the damage. And I did manage to win that game 89-43.
89-43, okay.
So yeah, it was a good event.
Indeed.
But I was really happy with how I played.
And
like I said, you know, thanks to all of my opponents, you're all wonderful. Ian, Jack, Stuart, Richard and Anthony. 5 great games,
So would you say, based off other Custodes lists that you play, obviously we saw that one guy brought tanks. Would you say that yours is built completely different to what we normally see? And what would you say is your standout unit in that? What makes your playstyle work?
Well, I think from what I've seen is majority of the players are taking the Solar detachment with a couple of Telemons, the Dreadnoughts that stand back up. One can have like a Feel No Pain, need minus damage, and then they take the tanks for the support as well.
Yeah.
My army doesn't play like that in any way. I think on the whole, my army allows me to completely push. I can have a go turn if I need to, where I can full send it. It allows me to play cagey and just trade with little units. I think I've got more versatility to handle different lists, but I think if I play in the mirror match against the Solar detachment, I think I lose it.
Okay.
Because they have all -1 damage everywhere.
I see,
And my army's damage 2.
Damage 2, yeah. And your army's based on not necessarily hard-hitting heavy damage, just like volume of
attacks.
Of like -1, 2 damage stuff, yeah. Or -2, 2 damage, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's a possibility that they also whiff.
Yeah.
Because, like, if their Telemons, for example, charge me on an objective, I can spend a CP and make myself -1 to hit. Now their minimal attacks are only hitting on 3s. They're probably wounding on 2s or 3s. So they'll drop some, and then I'm on 4 pin buttons. So it becomes quite dicey at that stage.
Your detachment, is this the one where you can choose lethal or sustained?
So everybody can choose lethal or sustained, but they always get it on a 6, I get it on a 5.
That's so powerful. Yeah,
I could also choose to have extra AP and just have lethals on 6s with extra AP, but I often just went for critical hits on 5s.
That's so good, that is. Yeah, I've played against that list a few times, yeah.
Yeah. So, but now going forward, I've got 2 lists. One that will play on UKTC, which is more infantry heavy, so I can go through the walls. And then the other list, which has got more bikes, that will play on a GW type layout where the terrain's a bit more open.
Okay, so where would you say competitively Custodes is sitting right now? And for those Custodes players watching this that might want to get tips, what advice would you give them in terms of building a list and to get good reps and wins out of them?
I think for me, you've got to lean into that play style of the army. So I have really lent into the shield host. I've taken lots of units that really benefit from the critical hits on 5s. I've got lots of units with extra utility, so it doubles down on the damage. So when I do hit, I'm expecting to kill. So I'm either getting Lance from the Venatari or the bikes, or I'm getting rerolls from the Terminators or rerolls because I'm on an objective.
Yeah.
I've got a unit that can use each of the stratagems because I didn't have that before with the Wardens. So I feel like for me, yeah, really lean into that approach that you want to take.
Perfect. Yeah.
And I think there are arguments to take different detachments, and I can see that across the board. I've tried them all. I think the only one I haven't tried is the Sisters-based attachment, and even that I think, okay, there's some tricks in there that I wouldn't mind giving a test. Is it as competitive? Probably not. But
for other Custodes players, what would you say is an auto-include must-take?
Oh, I think you can't go wrong with 3 Venatari.
Those are guys that can move fast. Yeah, move 10
inches.
Wings, yeah.
I think 3 of those is brilliant. I love 3 Terminators. Yeah, I wouldn't take 2, I'd take 3.
Okay.
Bikes are difficult to use, but when used well are very strong. I think they can be, when used correctly, a very, very good unit. And then I think, like, most people take the Wardens, because I think, like, they're probably sat at like a 50-ish win rate at the minute.
So when you were building your list, did you go in there knowing, did you go in there thinking, right, I like melee, I like speed, the bikes are coming in first, and then I want to build around the bikes?
Pretty much. I think the bikes were the essential part that I really wanted to take.
Oh, amazing.
And one decision that I did make was I took everything with Hurricane bolters. A lot of people ask me why, and not the salvos, the more las cannon rockets, but I feel like the amount of damage you can accrue with just so many shots outweighs the benefit. So I have changed my list.
And they're only strength 9, aren't they? Or strength 12, are they?
Strength 10 with rerolls to wound.
Strength 10, yeah.
But I think when you're only getting 3 shots and you roll a 1, you lose 33% of your output.
You played that list against me, and I remember you struggling to kill the Malceptors just because I had the invulnerable saves, and you winning me on 5s.
And if I roll a 1 to hit, I lose so much damage output and efficiency. Whereas the Hurricane Bolters just pick up little stuff. Or Combined Fire can still do a good number because you're forcing saves at damage 2, which is quite useful.
Haven't you just dropped as well a new updated version of the Masterclass for this detachment?
Yeah, so it's, as recording this, it's going to be filmed this week, and I'm going to be going over each of the detachments in a play style and combos that I think would work really, really well for it, and also the advanced tactics that you need to know. But most importantly, I'm also going to just go over how to beat Custodes.
Amazing.
So guys, if you're not a Custodes player, there's still so much value there, because if you go up against somebody like me or somebody else that's playing Custodes, you know what to do in order to either stop them scoring or stop them hitting so hard.
I've said this a million times about the Masterclass series. Like, it's great for building knowledge and reassurance of your own faction, but I think the benefit really comes from understanding what your opponent's weaknesses are.
Yeah.
Like, coming against something that I've never really played, jump on the masterclass, I know all the stratagems, all the detachments, and their weaknesses, and I just think that's just invaluable.
And we show you on the table as well, like what the moves actually look like, the impact of that, so you can visually see it. Because I'm much more of a visual learner, and I would say, like, if you're a beginner, yeah, you're going to learn a lot from the masterclass because it's going to show you some, like, the combos, the builds. Great, you're going to learn a lot from it. If you're, you know, maybe playing the faction for a while, there's going to be some things that you'll pick up and you go, oh, I haven't thought about introducing that into my list, or maybe I've been using that unit wrong in the way that I've been trying to make it work. If you're already a good player with that faction, a lot of it's going to maybe reconfirming what you already know. It might give you some ideas to try out different stuff, but it, like you said, is going to help you discover how to play against all the different factions. And you can obviously buy the Custodes Masterclass on its own, or part of the bundle deal where you get access to every single Masterclass we've ever done and will ever do. And anytime it gets updated, you instantly get the new upgrade.
Normally what I do, to be honest with you, on the, because I've got all the masterclasses, I literally go straight to strengths, the SWOT analysis, and I'll just skip to the weaknesses and go, ha.
Now I know.
Now I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I just think knowing, it saves so much time, especially if you're a competitive player, going into a list, knowing the detachments on the masterclass, opening up that your tournament roster and seeing what detachment you're against, and just going, oh, okay, now I feel confident that I know what this can do. I know the detachment rule. I know the army abilities and what they can do. And it's so reassuring to go in there and feel confident that you can know what your army can do.
Yeah.
Because the worst feeling in the world is coming against something you don't know and then just getting like splattered.
Yeah, no, I agree. Well, guys, thanks so much for tuning in. And again, thank you to all of my opponents. You've been wonderful. Thank you to the Custode community for being so supportive. Everybody that wished me luck at the GT. And thanks, Lee, for your time.
Lastly, guys, drop a comment below. What are your thoughts on Steve's list? And what are your favourite Custodes units? And we'll take it from there.
Right.
And hopefully see you guys on the masterclass.
See you later, guys.
In a bit.